Hi, I'm Cantor Matt Austerklein, and this is the Lowell Milken Center for Music of American Jewish Experience. It's easy to be certain about what Jewish music is. It's Hava Nagila, it's Fiddler on the Roof. But this misses so much. The variety of Jewish musical experience defies easy expectations, both in its diversity and in the big questions it asks of who we are and where we came from. That's one of the things I love about being a Jewish musicologist and a cantor. So today, I'm going to tell you about a recently rediscovered source from my own research on Jewish music history, which illuminates the interaction between Jewish musicians, cantors, and European music, both through written notes and the sounds of the street. This source is called Michtam LeDavid. Michtam LeDavid is a manuscript from right around 1600, housed in the Oppenheim collection of the Bodleian Library at Oxford University. Now, when I was looking this up in the catalog, the entry indicated that part of this manuscript had a section called Neginat David, or David's Music, which contained advice for cantors. Now, in the synagogue, as in scholarship, advice is often a code word for criticism, and the manuscript did not disappoint. But what lay within was so much more. The author of Michtam LeDavid, Rabbi David ben Menachem Ulmo, was a German-born rabbi who immigrated to Bohemia, living in the city of Prague at the turn of the 17th century. In addition to being a rabbi, he was both a klezmer musician and a very serious Jewish mystic. Most of Rabbi Ulmo's book is fervent advocacy that Ashkenazi Jews should adopt the practice of Lurianic mysticism and the Kabbalat Shabbat service. Now, Kabbalat Shabbat, the introduction to the Friday night service, is now standard all over the Jewish world, and the site for major musical expression culminating in that hit poem, Lecha Dodi. But back then, Kabbalah in this way was very new, spreading among the Jews of Europe from its origins with Rabbi Isaac Luria in Tzfat. Kabbalistic fraternities and groups popped up, first in the land of Israel, and then in Italy, and then subsequently in East Central Europe, especially in Rabbi Ulmo's home in Prague. And they inspired new contexts and new practices for Jewish sacred music. After all, this new mystical movement advocated high levels of joy in religious worship, and what better way to inspire more joy than more music? In fact, one of the things that makes Michtam LeDavid so special is it's giving new insight into the relationship between mysticism and Jewish musicians. Rabbi Ulmo's manuscript antedates the first published version of the Kabbalat Shabbat service in Prague by a decade, and he presents himself as a musician in the vanguard of mystical fervor. What's more, Prague's Jewish musicians were known to be involved in Friday night musical services with instruments by the middle of the 17th century, when several synagogues in Prague were employing cantors and singers and professional musicians, even using a small organ to welcome the Sabbath with joy before the sun set. So what we have in Michtam LeDavid is an exciting, new, and early piece of the history not only of Jewish music, but also of the Jewish liturgy and Kabbalah. But let me allow Rabbi Ulmo to speak more for himself. Rabbi Ulmo's experience as a Jewish musician follows that of others in Prague, who were sought-after dance musicians, performers at Christian weddings, feasts, and even religious services. Here in Michtam LeDavid, Rabbi Ulmo colorfully describes his experience at a gig, with his dance band appearing next to a more formal Christian ensemble playing classical music. Rabbi Ulmo writes, quote, From early days, I was often in the company of respected and important princes, dukes, and great authorities, with my musical instruments and with a band of distinguished klezmer players. And then I also saw a number of ensembles of non-Jewish instrumentalists who had among them great artists that would also play distinguished, stirring, and highly glorified melodies. Thus, I trembled and was fearful and overwhelmed with my friend, and we were at the end of our rope as to what to do. And I set my mind to seek out and search after distinguished melodies such as they enjoyed and desired, and not those melodies that we regularly play to get people to dance or to play a feast before drunk and distempered thieves. Here, Rabbi Ulmo, a klezmer, has been thrust into the courts of the Bohemian nobility, entranced and even embarrassed by the grandeur of non-Jewish ensembles, referred to him earlier in the manuscript as practicing the wisdom of the nations that is called Musik, or music. This music stood to him in contrast with the dance music and street music for which his fellow klezmer musicians were well known. But don't take Rabbi Ulmo for a grass-is-greener kind of Jewish musician. Likely a Cantor himself, he was a staunch defender of traditional synagogue music, admonishing cantors to use the old familiar melodies which were taught from one's youth and enabled one to pray. He is even one of the first Jewish writers, centuries in advance of our modern cantors, to claim that the Ashkenazic melodies of the high holidays were set down long ago in pre-medieval Jewish antiquity. This is what he writes. Therefore, we must make our prayers and services with holiness and purity, using our old melodies of Shabbat and festivals, which without a doubt were established by the Tanaim and the Amoraim, the rabbis of the Talmud, especially the melodies of the high holidays. To these some cantors have come to add, intermixing and exchanging some foreign tunes between these reverent melodies. It makes my soul grieve. Now, although medieval rabbis had long ruled on the importance of preserving traditional melodies, this is one of the first explicit legends of the antiquity of traditional Ashkenazic melodies, saying that they go back a millennium and a half. In fact, it is Rabbi Ulmo's purpose to keep his fellow cantors from mixing the sacred and the secular, because the melodies that have come down are so powerful and sacred. But now, he can't stop the flood. Here's the situation. He writes, quote, "Despite the fact that these cantors are all without a doubt wise, discerning, and experienced, and fear the Lord as well, they should not rely on their understanding, saying, 'I have studied the wisdom of Israel, I shall go and study the wisdom of the nations,' which is Musik. It is impossible," Rabbi Ulmo adds, "for a person to think pure thoughts in prayer and to be precise with great depth in fear and trembling with those foreign melodies, specifically when one makes several melodies a novelty each time, ever changing one melody joined to the next. And even if the cantor is wise and sharp, unlike myself, it would be impossible for him to have intention with those foreign melodies as composed, or to think pure thoughts in prayer with reverence." Rabbi Ulmo is so emphatic because the traditional melodies of prayer are not only old, but they're loaded with Kabbalistic energy and power, and one cannot have enough brain space to fully do all of the kavanot, all of the mystical intentions of the words, while simultaneously doing all of this new music. Rabbi Ulmo is a sensitive musician, and he understands that the focus it takes to play music is also like the focus you need to pray wholeheartedly. The liturgical system to him is too heavy to accommodate both at the same time, and the traditional melodies already work in a special spiritual way. Yet Rabbi Ulmo has seen that the sounds of the European streets and of the dance hall and of the tavern are mixing with the sounds of the synagogue, which to him yields disastrous results. Quote, "And now," Rabbi Ulmo says, in the place of those beautiful melodies, old, pleasant, and very good ones, which were our ancestors' heritage, as I explained, the Cantors have switched things up, changing a portion and making melodies in the synagogue with their mouth that the klezmorim regularly play on the flute to make people join in the dances. For at festive meals, when the guests recline for a spell, then the klezmer musicians make dances regularly with the drum and the lyre, with the flute and the lute, with cymbals and with trumpets, known as shalmaye or trommeten as they are called. Such melodies known in Lashon Ashkenaz, that is Yiddish, as Beirentanz and Hoprecht and the like. They make a number of nigunim mishugaim, of insane melodies, humming to the tune of the lute, considered like David himself. They think that their instruments are like David's instruments, that they are for the heavens, yet they are actually for pleasure alone. This fantastic paragraph does a number of things. It confirms the great musicologist Avram Tzvi Edelson's century-old suggestion that klezmer musicians 500 years ago were the teachers of cantors in the ways of music. In another place in the manuscript, in fact, it will even say that the klezmers are participating with non-Jewish musicians in royal street processionals. And then cantors are coming and imitating these melodies in the synagogue as well. We see here that Rabbi Ulmo describes the activities of klezmer musicians at festive meals in Prague when there's dancing, and he names the specific types of instruments that they used. And he even offers us the earliest mentions of specific klezmer dance music and melodies from the original 17th century Prague klezmer repertoire. Sources like this go beyond Hava Nagila and Fiddler on the Roof. They burst open huge questions about the boundaries of Jewish music, both in and outside the synagogue, of the real life of street musicians, klezmer musicians, and cantors. And they ask questions of cultural identity and religious life that are still alive for us today. There are many other sources still out there, waiting to be re-examined and rediscovered. In this way, the study of Jewish musicology represents a renewable resource of fascination, imagination, and meaning for many years to come. Thank you for watching the Lowell Milken Center for Music of American Jewish Experience.